Hey, everybody, and welcome to TNMCoaching Unplugged and Zoran Todorovic Interconnected Podcast. I'm so joyful and happy to be with you today. Our community is growing. I love your comments on our social media. I love that our YouTube channel is skyrocketing. This is an indication of you being engaged, listening to this podcast, sharing it with your family and friends. I'm really grateful that you're here with us today because we have a wonderful elevation. As you know, this podcast is created to elevate your mind, to elevate your heart, to engage your soul to the next level and beyond, when you can really be inspired by wonderful people who are doing wonderful things. And today we have a great and very special guest, Melissa Tittl. Melissa is acclaimed investigative journalist, filmmaker. She's a producer. She's known to me for her groundbreaking discoveries in exploring the mysteries of life and mysteries of the universe. She's currently a driving force at Hathor Studios when she creates a thought-provoking content that challenges conventional thinking, derives into the scientific, historical, spiritual phenomena, how they all interlink together, which is absolutely wonderful. Melissa is here today to discuss her documentaries when she uncovers a stunning new discovery of the secret code of mathematical support in simulation hypothesis, which is the documentary called Code 12. And then also we're going to talk about her recent documentary, The Source, that just came up last week out of the production. So I'm so grateful and happy to have Melissa with me today. Welcome, Melissa. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
And, I'm always fascinated with people who are like yourself, somebody who is passionate about evolution of human consciousness, somebody that really wants humanity to get to the next level of themselves, to evolve, to grow into the new level of thinking, to the new level of consciousness. So tell me, what inspired this passion inside of you? How was your journey into documentary filmmaking, and why do you do what you do today?
I love that question because every time someone asks me that, I think of a new way to say it because I feel maybe a lot of people that are even listening to this, you getting involved in something esoteric or groundbreaking, or you feel like you're part of something that's moving human evolution. I feel that it's been inside of you all the time. And for me as a child, I think I always was looking at the world thinking to myself, this adultness that I'm supposed to grow into, this can't be it. This can't be all that there is.
Yeah.
That doesn't look like a lot to look forward to. And so my mind was always kind of expanding and trying to understand. And I think maybe a lot of people listening, maybe they also felt that way. And so it was natural, as I loved reading and writing as a kid, it was natural eventually going to college and then following my passions to TV and film that I would end up in TV and film. And when I first got to Hollywood in my early 20s, I worked for Paramount Studios, and I loved it. Film is amazing, so much fun. It's flashy. You're with A-listers and business, and things are moving, and it's cool, just like they show in the movies about the movie industry. But there's a piece of my soul that thought to myself, I'm not contributing in the way that I should. And being a big nerd, I love space and, expansion and understanding and quantum physics and all this kind of stuff. So my first job working for the History Channel, doing docu-type work, was for a show called The Universe. I'm dating myself here a little bit, but at the time it was like groundbreaking. It was the first time American television was making something about quantum physics for the average Joe on their couch beer. So it was a big partnership between NASA and the European space agencies, where we were trying to, to get the layman to understand what was happening in space. And then from there, I never looked back. All of a sudden, I just kept going on that trajectory, whether it was human evolution, meditation, spiritual work, esoteric stuff, or aliens, right? My trajectory of what I was producing and what I was doing just kept going on that trail.
Right. That's beautiful that you kind of got into that connection with your deeper soul purpose, because for me, when you mentioned the film industry and being in Hollywood, it's really challenging on a certain level. And I know a lot of producers, filmmakers, also actors, that this kind of, it's detrimental to their soul on a certain level. It's wonderful and glamorous and prestigious, but it distances them from the true soul purpose. So it's wonderful that you felt that in your body, right? At that moment in time, and you knew that you need to move to something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anybody who wants to be in front of the camera or make something for the human consciousness, unfortunately, in that journey, it's like a hero's journey. You come up against the dragon in the cave, right? Like and that is the matrix, right? That is the lower consciousness that exists, and you have to make a decision. Are you going to sell out and fit in so that you play a part in what they want you to say, or are you going to be an original voice and not fight against it, but stand up for what you need to say? And it's really hard. And so I applaud anybody who's doing anything, filmmaker, actress. You have a YouTube channel, right? I mean, You step out and say, this is how I feel. This is how I'm contributing. That's a big step. It's a really, really big step. And so I applaud you, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And in your life, what empowered you to have this courage to be able to step and to have this authentic voice? And I love what you're saying. It's not about fighting against. It's not about it being in resistance. It's just about being somebody who is allowing herself or himself to have this authentic voice. But for me, that requires courage. But for all the people who are listening to this, because there's a lot of creative people who would love to do something that you do, for example, create wonderful documentary movies. But as you said, for that, you need to step up and you need to be courageous enough. So I'm curious a little bit more about your journey, your hero's journey. What gave you that courage? How did you become that courageous so you can then be authentic?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Now you're going to make me go deep. I thought I hide behind all my esoteric knowledge, but now I really got to think about.
But something will come up, I'm sure.
When I've always been, I don't think of myself as this way, but I've always been called difficult, right? There's that word, like when you're a kid, like you're difficult, you're always asking questions, you're not listening, like all of that. Like that was me to a T. Like, because I was like, I don't know about that. I want to know if you're going to make me do that. Like, so I was a difficult kid. And that obviously transitioned into being a teen and then college kid and then, moving on. But that kind of ability as a young person to be like, no, I want to know why. Tell me why. Difficult, yes. I have one of those now. As
of course you do.
Like, okay. Oh, it's me. Like several years ago. Okay. That creates your abilities to survive when everyone hates you, when everybody wants you to just be like them so that we can move on, so it'll be easier for everybody, for the crowd, for the community, for the family. But if you practice not fighting, but standing your ground, creating boundaries, people eventually will be like, oh, that's her. She's gonna ask this, right? Like, it was almost as a young person, I was training my family to deal with me instead of waiting for many years later when I was older and gone through therapy and came back and told my family how to communicate with me. And that's how I felt without actually consciously doing it.
Right.
That I trained myself for Hollywood. I was many instances where I was in positions as a woman, even if I wasn't a woman, if I was a guy, where I was in a position to sacrifice something or become unworthy because someone told me to. And as much as it hurt me, I refused to believe that. I refused to believe that I was less than somebody for the sake of powerful gain. And I was the same way I was a kid, and I'm the same way now. And it's tough because as humans, we want to fit in. That is our survival technique.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And share belief systems, to be around that fire like thousands of years ago and share stories.
and belong deeply, and not stand up, not stand out. That's really, really pulling us into that gravity of collective consciousness. So you were able to understand what does it mean to be a difficult child, to translate this into your, courage and your charisma. And then from there on, that gave you, what I understand, a stronghold when you can become an authentic voice. So now when you're an authentic voice, I think for me, this is fascinating. This is the reason why. And I love people like you, and I value inviting people like you, because, I value courage, and I value that when people are able to empower themselves to go beyond that conformity of blending in and kind of not standing up for themselves. You began your documentary adventure. So now we are at the Code 12. So tell me a little bit more about that documentary, what it is, why that is documentary, you think it's important for humanity. And those two questions to start with, and I'll ask more.
All right. So I worked for every major network, and then I left Hollywood to take a position of head of content at Gaia, which is a conscious network. And I left that and started Hathor Studios. And through the progress of about 25 years of doing all this esoteric stuff and writing all these shows, whether it's quantum physics, spirituality, aliens, space, whatever, there's one thing that kept coming up in my research. Because I kept doing that thing that when I was a kid, like, wait, whoa. We keep producing and asking the same questions. It feels like we're visiting the Great Pyramid. I mean, I just have written so many shows about the Great Pyramid. And, when I actually went there, I was sort of bored. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, all right, I thought I actually physically am now in the Great Pyramid. But we're not. We're asking the same questions. There's like something we're missing. And all of a sudden, I started to go through all of my research through all these years and all these things, and all these books and all these people, and I started to see a pattern that I had never seen before, and that's what this movie is about. The movie's called Code 12. I don't want to tell what the ending is, but there's something after 12 that is really the key of this whole piece. But the 12 showed up in all of my work, whether it was ancient spiritual texts, whether it's mythology, the way a building was designed, quantum physics, how space propagates itself, our own DNA code, alien interaction, like everything. There was this weird anomaly, calculation. So I started to dive into that, and I unraveled the story, Code 12, which to me, 12 is the actual evidence of our outer rim, our simulation, our structure, if you will. And there is a way out, and that's what all of these spiritual texts, meditations, understandings about the world, the universe, our DNA, biology, quantum physics, all of that is so that we, one, must understand the structure of what we live in, and two, the second part is how to change it. And that is what this documentary is about. It's not the fear of, we could be living in a simulation and who did it. Yes, we do try to answer some of those questions. But it is, okay, here's the information, and here's the way that we can also break free of it and change our structure.
Right.
One thing I want to point out, people always get scared. If I live in a matrix, and I get out, that means I don't have my friends and family. I don't have my connections. And that's not true. I mean, I just want to point this out, that people like Buddha and Jesus and Mary Magdalene and gods and goddesses, you know what they were? They broke free of the structure and they came in and out of it. They knew how it worked. They were able to manipulate it, but they were only able to manipulate the structure because they understood how it worked. And that is what I really want to bring to people, that your ability to break through the structure and change it, whether it's yourself and then, of course, communities and outside and of the universe, that is the work. And that is what we are all supposed to be understanding so that we can change what we've built here.
I cannot agree more than that. For me, that foundational work or understanding the constructs of reality and then being able to evolve from that, it's where the rubber hits the road, bypassing into the higher realms and bypassing into a spiritual lingo when this is not real or this doesn't exist or this is just not present. For me, it's just the way to sabotage ourselves. As you said, when we understand the constructs of the matrix of the reality that we create, then we can slowly choose to exit if this is our choice, right? So I need to ask you this. I don't know, you can say no if you don't want to answer this question. So in the movie or outside of the movie, do you believe that we do live in a simulation? Is that something that you came to conclude through the research, or are you still wondering if this is the reality? Where are you personally at your level in your life in relationship to that?
I think through this research, because it's been it's me connecting the dots for several years, not just, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think that we do live in a simulated reality and we all contribute to it. It's not some overlord poking the buttons and pressing, buttons, now it's wartime, no, we something was built,
right?
We in it, and then we've contributed to all the bands of consciousness. We believe all the bad things that are happening. We believe that must happen, but that's not necessarily the truth. That's the restructuring of our structure, right?
Right.
I'm also a big historian. If you just take esoteric knowledge and spiritual knowledge out of it and in quantum physics, you just focus on history. Just focus on history. Think of how history repeats itself. Now, just look, every 50 years it repeats itself. We're always on the brink of World War whatever.
Correct.
Like always we are there. And then we forget. We have amnesia about, 50, 60 years ago, and then we're back at it again. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's the end of times.
Yeah.
No, we've created this pattern as a way that we feel safe, that this consciousness that we've created is true. And we see these patterns in people. A lot of you, I'm sure you talk to a lot of people about this, about breaking their own patterns, their own way of thinking. Did you ever think about where that came from? Like where those most patterns of people are pretty similar. So
exactly.
We programmed ourselves to be detrimental to ourselves. And the question is why? So we can't give that away to a god, or something, some alien or something controlling us. We have to really look at our simulation, this is what I believe, as something that we've decided, a self-made prison. And I guess the question would be, if we have the tools to change it, why do we keep doing it?
Exactly. Recreating it. Yeah.
Recreating it over and over and over and over again. And it's just so evident now. And I think maybe even 5 years ago, I would have sounded like a crazy person. But the conclusions of scientists, let's just leave it to the people that are supposed to be very smart. The conclusion of scientists all over the world is that we must live in a simulation. Look what we're creating with AI right now. It's in a couple years, it will be nearly impossible to tell reality from an AI created image. We're almost there now, but very soon. And so what would be the odds that we'd be living in something like that ourselves if we're creating that within our own confines? I believe that there's a French quantum physicist that discovered in 2003 through a collaboration with the European Space Station and NASA. They had built a new radio signal I'm going to murder it because I just don't have it in front of me.
That's
light signaling device that could figure out, the outer rims of our universe. And what they discovered, this correlates to the movie Code 12, is that the structure that they found the end of our universe.
Wow.
As walls and points. And you know what it created? A dodecahedron.
Oh, wow.
We are encapsulated in a 12-pointed sacred geometry piece, a dodecahedron. That's what we live in. They've mapped it. And so they were like, well, even if we sent a rocket out into space, we couldn't do it in the way that we have created or we understand the universe, because it would just turn around and come back, because it would be in this dodecahedron. And so they would have to change physics. They'd have to understand a different part of physics to break through the universe to get through another universe. And that is what we are talking on a spiritual level that they discovered in 2003 about the universe that we live in. So, I mean, that was a long time ago. So if you can imagine science actually advancing towards that, and we're kind of questioning, do we live in a simulation? I don't know. It seems so evident to me.
Yeah, and this is the reason why we want people to see the movie as well. We want them to dive into that, to, you know, look into it, to feel into it, to decide for themselves if this is something they resonate with. I tend to agree with you, I especially when it comes to the historical repetition of the patterns in the human collective consciousness. And I also believe that somehow we do plug into the collective unconscious or collective conscious, that we keep on recreating our reality. And the call for action here is for us to awaken, to understand the reality as it is, to be able to evolve it. I also don't believe that we are enslaved by some external force that is, you know, deliberately enslaving us. I believe that we are enslaving ourselves on a certain level because we don't have enough knowledge or capacity to understand everything. So, you know, when we are introduced to documentaries like yours, that invites us to kind of dive, you know, get into the learning mode and learn about everything and remember, you know, because we all know it innately. So that's code 12, right? So the code 12 will inspire people to get into that level. Anything else you would love to share about this movie, and why do you feel the audience should dedicate time, energy, and space to see it?
This movie, from what I've heard, I mean, I'm not saying this because I made it. Sometimes you just make things as filmmakers and you just throw it out there and then you don't know what's going to happen. But what I've heard is that it's not complicated. It just has a lot of information. So watch it several times. Take the time to see what it brings up in you. And I'm really happy to report that a lot of people come to me with things I never thought of, but it's in them. They know a piece of the puzzle. And that's the most important thing to me. And so I invite people to take the journey and figure out what it's saying to them that opens something up in them. And right now, on, you know, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're listening to this, you can watch it on a platform, www.hathorstudio.com. Right now it's on Amazon, but Amazon's only in UK and US. But anywhere in the world, you can watch www.hathorstudio. You can find the movie there, behind the scenes, and also live Q&A with some of the talent.
Wonderful. So we will reference all of this in the description of the podcast and invite you there as well. And in your creative journey, you also just finished production of The Source, and this is the upcoming movie that has been released with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Tell me a little bit more about Source and what really inspired you to connect to Dr. Joe. You know, some of the audience, you know, who is following to this podcast, they know Dr. Joe Dispenza. I know him as well. I love his work also. But I'm curious about your relationship, your collaboration, and what was the inspiration behind this documentary for you?
I had known Dr. Joe for a really long time. And one day he called me and he said, I really want to do a documentary. I said, okay, let me know when you're ready. And this documentary is about his work, but and if you follow his work, you know that they have a whole science team from the UC San Diego, working alongside of them to prove that meditation.
To measure and to document. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah.
But nobody's really knows the story of how that came about. I mean, they're collaborating, but they're not together, right? Dr. Joe has the retreats, and the science team is rigorous, and I don't think people really understand that they're running what seems like a pharmaceutical study, but they're just testing people's bodies on the only pill they're taking is meditation. So, but that's really the story and the findings, and there's so much data that they've come out with, but we could only really cover what's been published because they're scientists that are legit, and they want to make sure that the people know the story of what they're doing. So it becomes more legit besides the people that really believe in meditation. And so this documentary is for people to really start to understand how powerful they are and their human potential. And one of the weird things that we did, and I say weird because if there's any filmmakers listening right now, is that if anybody's watched Tony Robbins' I'm Not Your Guru, you know that the whole thing was about Tony Robbins, being a guru. But one thing that Dr. Joe, and him and I have different opinions of this because as a filmmaker, I know that this is what people want to see. They want to see Dr. Joe. They want to see him in his house. They want to get to know him. Like, how does he know all this stuff? But what's really important to him is not about him, because he really believes that it's really about the people and the scientific research. So it is about Dr. Joe's work, but we use his work as an impetus to explain what is happening to people through science. And we really focus on that. And I know that's hard for people because they really want to know who the secret man, Dr. Joe Dispenza, is. But I actually really respect that. And so this film does talk about his work, but more of the amazing scientific discoveries that are happening when people for 7 days just sit down and clear their mind, and how their cells completely turn into the physiology of a completely different body. Whether you're stressed and have anxiety, or you have cancer and then you have no cancer, whatever it is, this is part of that key that you and I were talking about with Code 12. Part of changing yourself, your family, your community, the world, being part of that change is understanding how the universe works. And it starts with us on the tiny micro developments of cells. If we understand from a scientific position how that happens, we can do anything. We can change anything. And it becomes less of daunting to think about, oh my God, we're in this pattern, or we live in a matrix or whatever. If a documentary proves that in 7 days, you can have the physiology of a completely different body by letting go and going within yourself. I mean, what else could we create? What else could we do?
What else?
Maybe we're the gods we've been waiting for. We create all this mythology about things that are more powerful than us, but maybe they're to understand that we are those. We are that god, goddess we're waiting for.
I firmly believe in that. And I believe that, this famous saying, we're the ones we were waiting for. When I was in my young teenage years, I remember first time this phrase was introduced to me. I was like, what the heck are they talking about? We're so powerless. We don't have enough. We don't have enough knowledge. We don't have enough skills. I was like you as a child, questioning a lot and looking into the world and seeing the world and asking myself, do I really want to be part of this? How can I be part of this? And what is my play? What is my contribution? How can I evolve it to the next level? And I think that's why life purpose is so important. And this is the reason why I've asked you all these questions to begin with, to inspire our audience to really connect to that contribution, to what is yours to give, what is yours to contribute back into the society, back into the humanity. And when you do it with the uncompromisable dedication and hard work, because we know that we need to work a little bit hard, this whole illusion of doing nothing and everything appears out of nowhere, it's not true. At least at this moment in our evolution. Maybe later when we learn instantaneous reality creation. But right now, you need to give the energy to it. When we align to that, then we can create these wonderful things like you are creating right now, and you throw inspiration for all of us, especially in this top industry when a lot of talented documentary filmmaker that I met along the way, I've coached a lot of them along the way, the struggles of perseverance and commitment and determination to produce something and then to commercialize it, then to sell it, then to get it to people. It's a hero's journey in itself, right? So thank you so much for doing that. So, and for being you, for being that force and for showing up the possibility of what other people can be inspired with. So with the source, is that available on the platform? So still, if this is up and coming, or how can people find that documentary?
Yes. So worldwide, you can watch it at www.sourcethefilm.org. You can watch the movie. Also, we have packages where you can watch the movie and you can start your meditation journey. If you've never heard of Dr. Dispenza, or maybe you have and you want to update your meditations, we're offering all of that at the same time on the same website. So
wonderful.
Well, and all if you do buy the movie on that site to watch it, that all goes to the scientific team. So it's a donation towards Inner Science, which is running all of the scientific studies. So every time that you watch the movie, it actually supports the research.
Beautiful. And this is all good. Do we have this level of economy where we can trace our contribution to something bigger than just commercializing and earning money and creating profit? So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for kind of engaging in from that perspective, because I know that the fascination of a teacher or a guru, it's still present in our collective consciousness, and that people want to know more about the personality, about inner wiring, and about who is that man and who is that person. And I'm grateful to hear that you managed to move beyond that and invite people into focusing on work instead of the individual behind the work, which is something that we also need to transcend, because we just represent, different aspects of collective consciousness. It can be you, it can be me, it can be Dr. Joe Dispenza, it can be somebody completely different. It doesn't really matter, right? What matters is that work happens, right?
Yes. Agreed. And it was hard because as a storyteller, this is what we're ingrained. It's how we tell stories. The great hero arrives.
Yes.
The great goddess arrives, right? And so to not have that reference, it's almost like as an audience, you get angry. You're like, but I want to know how he works so that I can figure it out. And then he becomes my representation. But he's saying, no, I am not your representation. You are your representation. And then that is where it goes back to the audience member to be like, okay, I can grow my cells. They have to think about it. You have to be creative. You have to bring it back to the person. What is it you really want to create? And make it individual. That's going to change the world.
Wonderful. And when you mentioned the AI in a few sentences ago, I think that for me the creativity becomes more important than anything else right now. Right? This call for us defining our creative self, getting in relationship with our creative energy, being able to express it, being able to struggle with this, being able to even feel the pain of it, to be able to break through, feeling boredom of life, to be able to become creative is so important, because right now we're so fed with this information overstimulation that we're losing our creativity. So once again, kudos to you for creating the documentary when you're challenging the audience to step into their creativity instead of enjoying the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just sit back, have a cocktail. I mean, I like that too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be a hypocrite, but I'm sorry. Everything that I produce, you're gonna have to do some work.
Yeah, that's good. I
apologize in advance.
So we are kind of coming closer to the end of this conversation. So based on what we talked so far, Melissa, anything that you feel, it's important for the audience to know from you, like any call for action, piece of wisdom right now, right here in 2024, June, when this podcast has been recorded, based on your research, your knowledge, your experience, your filmmaking, what do you believe it's important for humanity to know? So if the humanity was to listen to you right now and you have this stage and you're talking to humanity, I know this is the big ask. What comes out of you? What is the core message? What is the call for action at this moment in time from your perspective?
There's a lot of talk about being kind and love is stronger than hate. But these words have become so overused that they don't have any weight anymore. They don't even we all know what that means, logically, but they don't actually have any weight in the heart. They don't actually move anything. So I would ask people to really feel the emotion of is safety, because safety is the root of expressing love. If we don't feel safe, we can't express love. And love, the vibration of love, as we know, as we've been talking about, as everybody talks about, changes everything. But the one root emotion a lot of people are not practicing is safety. So if you can imagine the billions and billions of people on this planet feeling safe, what would we accomplish? What would we do? There would be no arguments in parliament or government. There wouldn't be any arguments with your neighbor, because if everybody felt safe, there would be an expression of everybody getting what they needed. There wouldn't be the struggles that we all feel within our human community. So This is going to be a really hard one, but I think it's the thing we need to, as individuals listening to this podcast and communities and bigger existences, we need to practice the emotion of safety, because from there we can change and we can make decisions that will benefit everybody.
Thank you so much for that call for action, for that invitation. Melissa, thank you so much for being with us here today. Your wisdom, it's inspiring. Thank you once again for being you. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in to this show. Thank you so much for your comments, for your likes, for sharing this video with your friends and family, for choosing to get inspired, to be challenged, and today's podcast is also challenging you to think in a different way, to shift those patterns inside of yourself, to really invest your time and energy into consuming media that really inspires you to grow, to become the best possible version of yourself. And you have 2 wonderful movies to explore as a result of this conversation. Once again, Melissa, thank you so much for coming. And thank you everybody else for tuning in, and bye for now.
Thank you.